train eater. In nature, especially with insects, they have a physiology that allows them to blend in with their environments. This lets them sneak up on prey without making them aware of their presence, until it's too late and the predator has a fulfilling meal. Stick bugs and leaf insects are prominent examples of this method of environmental camouflage. Train eater is another such creature, only it isn't the size of an insect, and its primary food source is humans. Train eater can shift its biology around, and when it's in full camouflage, it actually resembles a subway train, waiting for unfortunate people to walk into its mouth unawares. It's able to mimic complex mechanisms such as doors and windows. It can also harden and colour every part of its body. Seat benches, wall posters, it can even transform its many eyes to look like tinted windows and mirrors. When in its natural form, it looks like a mass of flesh with rows of eyes running up and down its sides. Its legs, similar to a millipede, unlatch from the tracks and are able to climb up walls or snake off-road. It can also open its primary mouth in front to reveal a uvula that, on cursory inspection, resembles the upper torso of a human. Even if its skin looks pink and fleshy, it's harder than most materials, and the train eater can selectively harden or soften portions of its body at will. This makes it easier to form cushions and handholds as needed. The train eater is also a patient hunter. It doesn't fully shift back into its monstrous form until it's full of food. So a person may have wandered into one's mouth without realizing they'd walked straight down a monster's gullet. And they may walk off again without ever knowing how close they were to being eaten. No, it likes to wait until its stomach is full, and so will operate like a regular train would, ferrying people from station to station, waiting until rush hour when it can get a full load. When that does happen and it finally has a full gullet of human victims, it will first adjust the tint on its eyes so it's darker on the outside. This prevents people outside from seeing in. Then it'll speed up, accelerating until it reaches velocities similar to that of a bullet train. At that point, the passengers will realize that something is wrong, that they may be in trouble, but the train eater has already closed and sealed all of its mouths. The same mouths that passengers mistook for doors and used to willingly enter its body. As it does so, it'll divert off the main transit lines, either taking abandoned rails or shifting to roads, transforming its outer appearance to resemble a bus or a more traditional train, depending on its surroundings. At this point, escape is more or less impossible. Maybe breaking one of its glass-like eyes will do the job, but all those fancy emergency brakes are just for show. Those are just fleshy knobs disguised as the real thing. Finally, when the train eater starts to eat, it'll release digestive acids in a sudden gush, filling its stomach, that is to say, the passenger cabin. Inorganic material breaks down just as rapidly as the flesh and bones of its food. Backpacks, briefcases, shoes, clothes, it all liquefies into the nutrient-rich slurry that was once a packed crowd of rush hour commuters. It's not an easy death, nor is it a fast one. The passengers will endure terror and agony as they're digested. When you really get down to it, the cause of death would most likely be drowning in their own juices. When the passengers have all passed and the resulting nutrient slurry has been absorbed into the creature, the train eater shifts its appearance back to that of a train. It'll return to the main transit lines and continues as though nothing ever happened. Soon it'll arrive at the next station, ready for another batch of food. The train eater gets its name for two reasons. First, and most obvious, for eating people while disguised as a train. Secondly, for its method of gaining that disguise in the first place. The only way for the creature to learn the train shape inside and out is to actually consume a train. Otherwise, it'll be stuck as a fleshy monster and eventually starve to death from the inability to capture food. For while the creature can move with great speed, its caloric requirements are immense. The only way to get enough food is to hunt by stealth. Similar to a snake, it can consume things much larger and wider than itself. It will seek out a train that's not in service and completely devour it. As the train is digested, the creature somehow learns to mimic it. What's more dangerous about the train eater is that they can hunt in groups. Linking up like real train cars not only increases their body count, but makes it harder to figure out what's a machine and what's a creature. When the group are together, the train eaters will follow the lead of the one at the head of the line. It is usually the strongest and fastest of them all. The creature at their tail end is usually the weakest and slowest. Train eaters can communicate using whistles and sounds that actually sound like train horns. This lets the leader signal the rest when it's time to actually eat the passengers or when to let them go. However, if the lead train gets too injured or too weak, then the car behind it will eventually rebel and consume it. This puts the aggressor into the position of leader and grants it all the train forms that the former leader had eaten over the course of its life, making the group potentially even stronger hunters than before. It makes it a balancing game. Similarly, if the end car gets too slow and drags down the rest of the train eaters, the leader will give the signal to detach it. That usually means that if the last train eater doesn't find another group, it will be caught by the agency, eaten by another hungry train eater, or starved to death. When full and not hunting for food, the train eater can go into hibernation and functions as a regular train as well. It's why there's a large team of agency operatives dedicated to constantly checking train cars around the world, making sure that any of the machines in use aren't actually alive. If a train eater is found in hibernation, it needs to be eliminated promptly. This is usually done by spraying the insides with a fast-acting poison. The train eater can't react in time to expel the poison, and the creature swiftly expires. Following that, several parts are added to the deceased monster, including emergency brakes and a control panel to allow a human conductor to control it. The legs are also removed, and regular train wheels are added. It takes surprisingly little effort to convert a dead train eater into a functioning train. Under a government order that we pushed in all of the countries we have influence in, all trains are sprayed with a new antibacterial treatment in a Keep Trains Clean initiative. This makes it quite easy to wipe out any lingering train eaters instead of behaving reactively when we happen to locate one. The next step is to figure out where they're actually coming from, because every year we find enough new train eaters to know they're not breeding in the train yards.